Good evening, Central, and anyone else. This is Henry Hushke back here for the day 3 of the COVID cast. Today we are going to be, per usual, going over the progress of the virus since the last cast, and then talking today a little bit about the economic impact of COVID 19. So, we're going to start it today with our update on the virus. So, if we go here to our favorite Johns Hopkins tracker site, link is in the description for you to look at the numbers for yourself. Anyways, if we look at today and we go back to the charts, the logarithmic chart, remember, is the important one because a straight line represents an exponential curve, an exponentially growing curve, which is what we want to break. So if we go back to the logarithmic chart, the big thing is not, again, this orange line is the mainland China line, which they seem to have contained this virus based on what they're reporting, what we've seen out of there. And what we're really looking at is, again, this yellow line, these other locations. And you can really just see how it's been a pretty straight line, which means the number of cases around the world has been growing exponentially in total. And you can see that in the last few days, we've really just seen this trend continue. So a very worrying trend with the virus today. And the world is definitely reflecting that the trends are extremely worrying. So, Europe. So, the big story in Europe obviously has been Italy. And Italy is under complete lockdown. We've seen some really touching footage out of Italy of, for instance, the guy singing opera from his balcony to the streets, and just the people of Italy going on their balconies to kind of sing in unison to try to get through these times. And it's very scary, but we did see some better news today. The one thing with Italy is the death rate in Italy is hovering around above 5%. I think it's around 7%, which is really, really terrible. All we can practically hope for is that that means that there's maybe have a shortage in testing. I'm not quite sure. So that's really terrible. But today, some good news. The past 2 days before today, we saw increases of 3,500 and 3,600 cases in Italy, but today we saw 3,200 cases. So I said yesterday on the cast that it would be a good sign if we started to see those new case numbers coming down in Italy. So hopefully we can assume the lockdown in Italy is maybe beginning to break this exponential growth, and hopefully my hope would be that in the next 2 weeks we see Italy really kind of get a hold of this thing, the case numbers maybe creeping back down to the hundreds, and eventually them getting to where China is here on this chart. So, sorry. So Italy's not the only country in Europe that's going through very rough things. Spain is now definitely officially hitting 9,000, the high 9,000s in cases, and they'll be in five figures. They probably already are. Spain is in this same boat, and they just started their lockdown nationally. So we should see Spain maybe in a week or two. Their new cases will continue to rise until maybe a week from now, when we'll reach the peak there, ideally. But Spain's really going to have a tough time here. So I really hope they do okay. The Spanish Prime Minister's wife, I know, was confirmed to have it. And I also know that the head of Catalonia also was confirmed to have it. So Spain, very rough spot. I'm really hoping that Spain can get through this. And same with France and Germany, and really just a ton of other European countries. Brutal data out of these places. They've really started to lock down, but I don't know. It's going to be a rough go of things for these countries, for sure. And then we have the UK, who's also is in a similar boat. Really, we're all in similar boats right now. It just depends on how far along into the outbreak you are. The UK still, as far as I know, has not shut down schools or anything. And there's been this notion in the UK that that somehow herd immunity will be the thing to solve this virus. Again, that is just, do not take that advice. We want to try to flatten the curve of this epidemic and hopefully not only flatten the curve, but eradicate the curve, so to say, get the number of new cases down to the point where we can cap them off, track all of them, and get rid of this thing completely, even though that at this point is very unlikely. So the UK, they've had some issues. I know schools are still open in the UK. I think that's a big mistake. I really hope they start to get things together. So that brings me to the US. The US obviously has had a botched rollout, but it seems like we're headed in the right direction. But still, the US I don't think is quite there. I really don't like the fact that it's kind of just been up to the discretion of the states. Although I do feel like governors, by and large, have been doing a fairly good job of trying to help their state. Today we saw some discouraging numbers. U.S. cases continue to grow, and we're going to see them grow much more, again, as we test. The key for the U.S., and we're supposed to be rolling out millions of tests in the coming weeks, so we really should start to get a good idea of just exactly what the situation is. What the U.S. needs to do is we need to test, isolate, and wait. Okay? And so far, I feel like we're mostly doing the isolate part right now, and I think that's going to get better. We weren't really doing the test part, but we're getting closer to doing that. I would say that in about a week, maybe 10 days, we'll know exactly what's up in the U.S., and then the wait part is going to be so key, and it's going to be difficult for a lot of people because it's not going to be easy. We can talk a big game and say that we're willing to go into this national quarantine or national, lockdown period potentially, but it's going to be very hard as time goes on. We'll see how long it lasts. So we got to make sure that we are vigilant and committed to the cause of preventing this from becoming another Spanish flu. So that's why I wanted to say with the virus, again, we're still seeing these same trends, but we are seeing countries continue to start to crack down. Another thing that I'll mention is, again, the developing world is reporting cases, and it's frankly, it's pretty frightening. The idea, for instance, just so many of these places where, the amount of respirators they have compared to the population size is, maybe one respirator for every 100,000 people in the entire country. I mean, we really need to stop this and delay this as much as possible until we can find treatments and that sort of thing. And again, I think the U.S. really is about to find some serious problems. So I think it is truly important that we don't blow off any recommendations to social distance right now. So, anyways, the economy, obviously, today was the biggest drop in U.S. stocks since 1987, the Great Panic they had in 1987, where basically the computers, they were programmed to sell when other people sold, and they all decided to sell at once. It was a catastrophe. So now we've had the largest drop, and from the highs since the Great Recession, the financial crash in 2008, and things are pretty dire. These are rough times, and there's a lot more economic impacts other than just the stocks going down. And it's pretty worrying because the stock market doesn't matter like in real time, like in the real world to us right now, but even if we overcome this outbreak, there are many companies that could go bankrupt. There could be a lot of unemployment, a lot of layoffs, and that could have it be its own vicious cycle, which may take us a lot longer to get out of than just even this virus, which is already so terrible. So just talking about the local economy here in Traverse City, here in Traverse City, our economy is really based on in the summer. We get a lot of tourism because we live in such a beautiful area. In the summer, people come up to see Lake Michigan. They come up to see Sleeping Bear National Park. It's really beautiful, and we have a whole business of these really great local businesses here, these restaurants and shops that survive on this summer boom. So it's very concerning to me, not only for the summer, but right now. There's so many like fantastic restaurants that today, Governor Whitmer rightfully, shut down any actual physical restaurants. They all have to be takeout now, which is a very good step. It's necessary because we have no idea what the extent of this virus is. And it's going to be necessary to prevent this from getting completely out of hand. But I'm very worried for these businesses, which, have to pay their work staff. They have to, or they don't have to. Their work staff is, going to be basically left without anything, and we're going to see huge unemployment. There's one really great business, Mama Lou's, and they just opened a new restaurant, and I'm sure they're leveraged with lots of debt, and now they're looking at a prolonged period of being completely shut down with no revenue. It could really put the nail in the coffin of a lot of businesses. Most U.S. businesses run on quite a bit of debt, so they can't really handle just not being able to be open at all for 3 months. I work in a food truck in the summer, and I'm worried that, even if we are able to recover from this virus, which it looks like the timetable is going to be fairly, pretty extended with this, at least into May, certainly, and probably through, most likely, will people want to come for the National Cherry Festival? That's our large thing, will there be that much tourism? I doubt it. It's going to have a big impact. So it's going to be hard. And, I don't really need necessarily, like, personally, it's not like I really need to be employed in the summer, but there are plenty of just even fellow teens who really do need the money and really do need the income in the summer. So it's worrying stuff. And I worry that everyone, the people that will get relief aren't those who are really going to need it with this in an economic downturn. In another note about life, an interesting message today from Comcast and NBC, Universal, all the same company. Anyways, all Universal film releases are going to be available at home. All of the new releases are going to be available at home. You're going to be able to watch them on TV, buy the movies. So basically, all the movies that would normally be at movie theaters will now be available from the comfort of your own home. So that's something super cool, actually, I think. Although I heard the price was like they were going to be retailing it for like over $20 per movie, which I don't know. I suppose I understand that they're just trying to make money, but it seems a little ridiculous to me. But that's something interesting that's coming about. And that kind of makes me think of maybe the longer term economic changes that we might see because of this crisis. For instance, if this catches on, will we see in the future movie theaters start to become obsolete? I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or a bad thing, but if people get used to it, maybe they'll be like, well, why shouldn't every release be able to come out on TV and we can just buy it instantly? I'll be interested to see. Same with, again, my job at a food truck is, I help kind of with food prep, and I ring the register. Well, this maybe we'll realize like maybe we need more automated checkout and that sort of thing. It'll be interesting to see, and yeah, I can't really say definitively what exactly will happen. So these are all things to think about in the economy going forward in the future. So I would really be interested, and I would really love in the future to have some guests on the COVID cast. I really want to hear your opinions, and yeah, I would really love to be able to include you in these conversations in the future. So if you're, thank you so much for watching, or for listening, I suppose. And if you would like to talk to me about one of these situations, or maybe let me know how you're coping with this crisis, or maybe anecdotes about what you're doing or your stories, or what you think about any of these topics. You could tell me what you think about maybe, for instance, your job in the summer, or what you think about the trajectory of the virus, or hopefully, I really hope not, but maybe you know someone who has the virus, unfortunately, in the future. So I would really like to start to talk to more people and expand the scope of the cast. So if you just leave a comment down below on this video and let me know if you would be interested in coming on and making an appearance. So I think that's going to be it for today's cast. I'm really going to try. I don't know if tomorrow's will be longer, but in the next few days, I'm going to try to make a longer, more comprehensive cast. I'm sure once we have a little more information, yeah, there's going to be plenty to talk about. I know that. Speaking of which, I did see Idris Elba has coronavirus, which is a shame. I really like Idris Elba. So if Idris Elba is listening at all, best wishes. I wish you a speedy recovery. Anyways, that's going to have to do it for now. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, stay safe, social distance. We're all going to get through this together. Definitely there's more to come. Things are going to be scary, but if we're all in this together and we all do our part, then we're going to be able to avoid a crisis, a true catastrophe. At least in our local communities, we can avoid a true catastrophe. So thank you for listening so much. If you can try to have a marvelous Monday and stay healthy.